Prvním prezentujícím je zahraniční host John Gole, ředitel evropských výzkumných programů v oblasti technologií analytické společnosti IDC. Já ho poprosím, aby přišel sem k nám.
Okay.
And this, just point it somewhere.
Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure for me to be here. So my name is John Gole. I'm a research director at IDC. I've been focusing for many years on Internet of Things and telecommunications markets in Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Today, I've been asked to talk with you for a few minutes about the evolution of the IoT industry, the market, and what are the opportunities in this market? And furthermore, how can companies capture that opportunity? How can you take advantage of this opportunity? So I'll go into these issues in my presentation. And a couple of the key points that I want to highlight are that essentially the market has been transformed quite recently, actually. While IoT has been evolving for many years, a lot has happened just in the last couple of years, which has changed dynamics both on the supply side. So new infrastructure and technology is available to enable IoT solutions much more easily in ways that weren't possible before. And also on the demand side. So customers now are aware of the benefits of IoT in ways they weren't before, and so customer perception has changed. So I'll talk a bit more about both of these, the supply and demand sides of the IoT markets and how companies can take advantage. All right, to kick things off though, I just wanted to reflect back on a historical example of IoT. Many years ago, close to 20 years ago, I remember seeing demonstrations of early smart home and IoT notions. And the best example people could come up with back then, some of the world's leading technology companies, the best example that they could come up with for IoT was a very expensive refrigerator connected to the internet so that it could order milk for you when you've run out of milk. Now this idea was frankly terrible. It didn't go anywhere. The technology wasn't ready in many respects, but also the value proposition was terrible. It wasn't convincing. Customers weren't convinced, and customers, end users, and companies were very skeptical. Why would you want to connect these devices to the internet? So we've come from that period where we've been very skeptical of IoT and connected devices. And I believe that things have been changing dramatically, and actually quite recently, quite a lot has changed. So, oops, maybe, there we go. Okay, so a key thing that's been happening is that we've seen now, with our own eyes and our own experiences, we've seen real IoT devices with very attractive value propositions on the market. There's devices, the one in the middle on top is a little dongle on your keys to help you find your keys when you lose them. Then there's examples like pet trackers, or the connected cars, self-driving cars, or also this example of Google reminding you where you parked. Now that's not necessarily IoT, but that's an example of using sensors to collect data, running a cloud application that provides you not just some data, but actually provides value to you as an end customer. And these kinds of solutions are on the market. These uses of sensor data, cloud applications, connected devices, these have changed the way that we think about IoT. And they've opened customers' eyes to the real benefits that they can enjoy. Now, it's not just consumer devices, though, it's also on the business side. So I have some examples here of some business use cases. I'm not sure what I should be pointing at, but now we're there. So I have some business examples as well. One of my favorite IoT use cases is the connected cow there on the top left. I love this example. Basically, Fujitsu put what amounts to a Fitbit, essentially, on a cow's wrist. And using this kind of sensor, they can track the location of the cattle, they can determine some health characteristics, but also they can determine when the cattle are ready to breed. And that is very valuable information to the cattle farmer. So this is just a very specific, simple example, but it brings important value to customers. We've got plenty of other examples with beehives monitoring, vineyard soil conditions, and then we've got very complex examples like the manufacturing case where there's really comprehensive roboticization and automation of factories and assembly lines. Additionally, that time I didn't press it. Additionally, on the bottom right, it's not just business, it's also the public sector. So cities and public sector have gotten involved and have embraced the idea of smart cities with things like smart lighting to save energy. So we're seeing use cases across the board. We're experiencing them now, and we're seeing real value. And that has changed the way the market views IoT, from one of deep skepticism to real positive views and optimism about what IoT can do for them. Okay, so that's led us to this change in perspective. That's led us away from thinking, why would you connect this refrigerator to the internet? And now we're thinking more, why isn't this thing connected to the internet? This thing broke. I had bought an expensive refrigerator and it broke. Why didn't the manufacturer know about that? Why didn't they send a repairman to fix it before I even had a problem? We now think more along these lines. We expect devices to be connected. We expect you to be collecting data and to be using it, automating things, innovating. So it's not just on the consumer side. If you think about, for example, a hospital administrator, if a hospital administrator can find their lost keys and they find their lost dog when they're not working, how are they going to explain to their boss that they can't find the $500,000 medical scanner that's gone missing somewhere on the premises, right? So if you can find your lost dog at home, you better be tracking your valuable equipment when you're at work. So we've changed perspective. Consumers are ready to embrace it. Businesses are ready. In a recent survey of West European companies, we found that 45% were already using IoT or trialing it, and 49% were planning to or thinking about it. Only 6.5% said they have no plans for IoT. So really, the market, the demand side has changed. The market is ready if you give them a value proposition that is convincing. All right. So let's go to an example of, well, I think we've, no, somebody's doing it for me.
Yes, I think so.
So if I could maybe get a few more clicks on this, and one more? Okay, that's good for now. So, okay. So essentially, we're convinced of that there are benefits, and maybe let's just skip forward one more. if we can. Okay, so I'll skip to this slide. Essentially, the market has evolved, and we are convinced there are benefits. But in our survey of businesses recently, we asked them what are the benefits they. Okay, thank you. What are the benefits that they're expecting to achieve with IoT? And these are the kinds of things you need to think about if you're developing IoT solutions. So the first answer that customers gave us, the most common answer, was productivity and cost cutting. And this is really common, right? For example, the street lighting that we saw, that's mostly about saving energy. If you're a utility and you're thinking about smart meters, the main reason is to cut costs. You save the money of the person who has to drive around to every household. So you increase productivity and cut costs. The next big benefit is customer experience, where, and this can be about product improvements, but it's also about, for that refrigerator example, about predictive maintenance, where a company can recognize there's a problem and fix it before I, as the customer, have to deal with it. So there's ways that you can use IoT to improve not just the product, but also the experience. And then the third example is driving innovation. And innovation is really kind of about more than just specific individual improvements and more about comprehensive transformation. And so that sort of relates to this slide here, where we can see an example in a hospital. On the left, you can imagine an old way of doing things, where if a patient is in distress, they ring the alarm, but the nurse is busy and has to interrupt what they're doing to go find out what the problem is. When they get there, oh, now there's a problem. Now we need equipment, but we don't have the equipment. Where's the equipment? Let's go get it. Oh, now we've confirmed there's a big problem. We have to call the emergency team. All of this takes time. There's delays built in. And when you start using IoT, sort of individual use cases, you can address this incrementally. But if you think holistically and integrate these technologies, you can transform the processes and the organization. So you can have the sensor notify all relevant people, provide them with the relevant data immediately. You can alert the emergency team immediately. You can maybe hold the elevators to make it faster for them to get there. You can notify the pharmacy to provide the meds. You can update the medical records. All of that can be done just instantly, rather than including all these delays and potential errors. So that's where innovation with IoT can drive fundamental transformation. So, okay, yeah, okay, so this is all very positive. Is there anything to worry about? Well, yes, of course there is. For one thing, security is a critical concern everybody needs to worry about. This is one of my favorite examples of IoT security fails. But there's plenty. Probably the most famous example was where security researchers were able to drive a Jeep. They hacked a Jeep remotely and drove it off the road. Security with IoT can be really critical, and the industry still needs to address this. Importantly, businesses who are buying IoT, they're aware of that. So if you want to deliver IoT to businesses, security is the top concern. You better be doing things safely. But also, costs and complexity are critical as well. Companies are struggling with this now. So if you can deliver a convincing value proposition, but you can do it safely, cheaply, and simply, you have a real opportunity here. Now, how are you going to do that? How are you going to get there? This is a critical point. We've seen that, so this is sort of a value chain to deliver an IoT solution. And until recently, some of these pieces were essentially missing. Cloud infrastructure has been developing for a few years, but the IoT platforms, those are new. And critically, the IoT-specific networks, those are very new. So this is something that's being deployed now, and until recently, the lack of those networks was a real inhibitor to deploying many IoT solutions. But those are now in place, as we're hearing about at today's event. And that enables companies, entrepreneurs, to develop things like the devices, the applications, and to stitch them all together into an integrated solution and take that to market. So that's where we stand now. That's enabled now. And we're expecting to see quite a lot of innovation over the next couple of years, building these complete solutions on that infrastructure and taking them to market. So the customers are ready if you bring them convincing value proposition, safely, cheaply, and simply. And if you can do that now on this new infrastructure, you stand to gain quite a lot from the IoT opportunity. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay.
Tak na slajdu se nám zatím žádná otázka neobjevila. Možná jsem měl říct, že můžete otázky psát už v průběhu té prezentace, nemusíte čekat, až to skončí. Má někdo nějakou otázku na Johna Golea přímo tady z publika? Je tady jedna otázka, tak já vám podám mikrofon, zahraju si na hostesku.
John, I'm a CEO of CRA. Of course, we're trying to do business and IoT, and I will speak in a minute about different things. My question to you is, business needs data. And I think that one of the points which I will speak about, the barriers of development for businesses, is we don't have enough data to be able to build the business cases in this. Is that any change here now to be more precise, targeting CE, let's say Czech Republic, to get a better predictions of data?
So can you just clarify for a moment, though? You're saying that we don't have enough data, or what do you mean?
We say we don't have enough data to be able to drive the business cases, meaning how many devices we expect to be connected, what's the potential of the market in Czech Republic and specific. Obviously, it comes with the development of IoT, where you get more and more data. What I'm saying that 2 years ago, when we started with this, we really struggled to get any potential of the market for the future, because you build the business cases for 7-8 years, and you don't have enough predictions to be able to put solid assumptions on the business case.
Right, right. Well, okay, so there's sort of a chicken and egg problem here in terms of collecting the data. And I think, I mean, in one of my early slides, there was an example. It wasn't an IoT example, but it was a data example where Google, they're collecting data for various purposes, and then they were able to add that small service where they can help you find where you parked your car, right? So that's where, okay, the data was already established for some business reasons. And then once it exists, there's huge opportunity for others to leverage data and to integrate it from different sources and to do new things that weren't actually the justification for the sensors in the first place. So I think that is an issue, that we need to get to a point where we're collecting the data and it is available for us to play with and to think about new use cases. But that said, there are use cases that do drive deployment, right? And so I think we need to think about both. I think that there are a lot of use cases, especially now that the networks are in place. And the networks are in place, but once the network is there, the devices need to be developed, and the applications, and the complete end-to-end solutions. It takes some time, but there are real use cases where there's quite easy return on investment and justify deployments now. So we see some examples outside where where there's justification to deploy the use cases. And then companies need to think about, all right, let's collect the data and let's also have an eye to the future where we might want it available for uses other than this initial case. So I think it's kind of both, but I do believe that there's commercial justification for deployments now, but it's been difficult until recently.
Děkujeme, thank you very much.